Well, it was not meant to be for host nation France and Thierry Henry, who had to settle for silver as Spain took home the gold following a wild 5-3 result that required extra time. This match gave me whiplash, man. France went up 1-0 early, then Spain finds 3 first-half goals in 10 minutes. France then managed to equalize in stoppage time on a pen, and then Spain scored twice in extra time to seal the win. 8 goals. 8 goals in a gold medal match, which I believe is the most ever in a gold medal match, if I'm not correct.
About right.
Absolutely nuts. A valiant effort from France to play their way back into this one, Lahoud, but Spain, what a summer. What a summer for Spain. The senior team win the Euros, the U23s take home the gold medal. How do you explain their success in these major tournaments?
Well, you go down the spine of the team and the cohesiveness, the understanding, the identity of the team, it's made at La Masia. All these players, they have that connective tissue of how to move in half spaces, how to move off each other. And what we saw in the first half, that was just one-way traffic, and it showed in the scoreline. But 2 players that showed that they were head and shoulders above the rest for most of that match until they came off the pitch were Fermin Lopez, who's becoming a hell of a player in his own right, and Phil, very young, and Alex Baena led La Liga in assists last season. Those 2 connected for one of the goals, but Fermin Lopez, the way he played, the way he moved, that hunger that he played with, I was just beyond impressed.
Also, you're getting, an incredible start by Fermin Lopez and an incredible end by Sergio Camello, who, plays for Rayo Vallecano, came through the Atletico Madrid system. I mean, here's a player who scored, 7 goals last season? Or 4 goals last season, 7 before that. Nothing incredible. Scored 2 after the final whistle or after the end of the 90th minute. He came on, he said it's go time. Just absolutely incredible. We're also talking about 2 squads that were going for it. Yeah. This was a fun game to watch. Nico called it an all-timer?
All-timer. Yeah. It was one of the best games I've ever seen. Similarly to the drama of the World Cup final 2022. Obviously, this is a step down because it's not at the level of a World Cup final, but the drama, the back and forth, it felt never ending. When France got the 3-2, it felt like it was imminent in the way that they were pushing on, and they finally they get the penalty kick to send it to extra time. It was one of the best soccer games I've ever seen, and credit to both squads who went toe-to-toe, to the managers that made the right adjustments to give us an extraordinary game of football.
Where did France fall short in this gold medal match?
Such a great question.
I can answer that right there.
Okay.
Alexander Lacazette. His performance, it wasn't good enough. He was the one player that I was expecting a lot from, and I felt like he let Thierry Henry down in his performances. After that U.S. match, not clinical enough in the final third, didn't even know he was on the pitch at different times. And I thought that the subs did change the game for France in terms of what Henry did get right. It was a bold move bringing Lacazette out when he did, but he was one player that didn't really
before the game got out of hand, it became a comeback, like a climb back to even it out for France, right? You shouldn't concede. Where did it go wrong? You can't concede 3 goals in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's what went wrong. And then
the momentum shift is dramatic.
You're playing catch-up for the rest of the game.
That should happen if you play yourself back into a match like that, especially in stoppage time.
Right.
I guess I was surprised that in extra time
France didn't win.
France didn't come out
at home.
That's credit to Spain, though, because you're on tired legs. When you're pinned to a wall suddenly, when you're in control, but Spain weren't in control for a long time, right?
No, but they seized control at the right moment.
Correct. What I meant to say, late in the second half, Spain were not in control. And then when you're pinned back against the wall, it's very difficult to kind of just find your bearings, find your footing, and play football again. And Spain looked good, but even then, one was a nice little glimpse of, all right, that wasn't the knockout punch. They hit the post. They hit the crossbar. At the end of it was a regulation, right? When it was 3-3, they could have won it. They received it was a haymaker, but it wasn't a knockout. And all credit to the Spanish players that were able to recognize that and stay in the game.
All credit to the Federation as well, because you have to release your best players who are available for this tournament, and they chose to. Fermin Lopez, more times than not, if he was anything but Spanish, wouldn't be at this tournament. He's above the quality. He really showed it. 6 goals in this tournament. Was that difference in the final third? You saw it in his movement. You thought in his finishing. Alex Baena probably wouldn't be in this tournament. But Spain, they believe in what they're doing. They believe in really promoting young players in major tournaments. And we saw that in the final play.
Yeah, to me, sure, and I'm sure there's a lot of players that, Thierry Henry, it's actually well documented. There were players that he wanted that he couldn't get.
But
I get that.
Happens.
Yeah, but that happens
across the board to every single national team. That's to me, that's not an excuse.
What I want to talk about specifically is we had a conversation at this desk regarding whether Thierry Henry's name should be floated for the U.S. men's national team, where on that position he is. And we talked about what were the results of this match that would
correct.
That
would say a lot.
Loss in the Olympics.
And I got to be honest, and I think you can see the vibes from the celebrations for the silver medal. I don't think he did anything to, wherever you placed him on the list, I don't think he did anything to go down a step. Not at all. In fact, if anything, what I take away from this was the vibe of the way the players are celebrating with him. You could have fooled me and told me they won gold. He seems to have created an atmosphere similar to what we talked about with Emma Hayes, where the players seem to love what happened in this tournament. Seem to love the time they spent with the French under-23 team in these Olympics, and that credit does tend to go to Thierry Henry. Could changes have been made sooner or later? Sure, we can all argue that point. And extra time, extra time in particular, but we could all argue that.
What grade would you give him? For
That's
this,
a great question.
For this Olympic
You can't
tournament?
go A because he didn't win gold.
Yeah.
But I don't think
B plus?
you'd have to go at least a B, at least.
Yeah. B plus. He won a silver medal.
Yeah, I say B plus.
And he won it's an A.
Yeah.
It's a results business. It is what it is, and it's very difficult to talk about Thierry from a completely objective point of view because we know him. We spend time with him. We've gotten to know him.
We're terrified of him.
But first of all, as a manager, we saw him before I think we knew him personally. We saw him as a manager in Major League Soccer, and then we got to know him as a person. I mean, we spent had dinner together with CBS teams, and I've gotten to know what makes him tick and what his motivations are. And from what he's talked about on podcasts, it seems like they're in the mentality of it all, in the mindset. There's something different, and I don't think Thierry of old. And I'd love to ask him this. The Thierry player wouldn't have been celebrating a silver medal like he did now. And I think that speaks to, look, you need to raise these players. You need to give them a stepping stone, a catapult, because although it wasn't the ultimate success, and this is what we were talking about on Friday, although it wasn't the ultimate success, there's success to have been found in this process.
Of course.
And it's difficult because I come from a culture that it's like you win or you fail, right? It's either it's black and white, and football in many parts of the world is black and white. But I think what Thierry has found, and I think as a person, and he's talked about this, how he's grown, that there's a certain acceptance and there's a certain validity in what they did, the French national team, in this process, and I think he recognizes that, and that only makes you grow as a group. And although they don't walk away with gold, I think he himself recognizes the merit in everything that this team did.
If you get the runner-up medal in a Champions League final, maybe you don't wear it, maybe you don't keep it, maybe you give it to a kid in the stands.
In Argentina, Olise was the only one that took it off.
But I will say this. You do not do that to a silver medal. A silver medal is still an absolute honor to the nation.
An Olympic silver medal.
An Olympic silver medal. So for me, this was a celebration, and it should be. And I think, to the point I made earlier, the way he's celebrating with the players, having not won gold, I think even he wouldn't have celebrated 10 years ago if he was the manager of this team. Even he would have thought of this as not enough, but he has grown as a human being.
It is so interesting.
It does point the arrow towards, hey, if you want this U.S. men's national team to feel like a team, you could
culturally.
I
would love to know what they're saying in France culturally. Like the newspapers are one thing, and you can read and they'll celebrate the silver. Culturally, and maybe this is the first change in culture, because I take this as Argentina came in second place at the World Cup, at the Copa America, and at the Copa America Centenario, back to back to back, and that was seen as a failure with Messi. And I think there's something toxic.
I will add this, Nico and Alexis, is going into this Olympics. This is a moment of pride for Thierry. The Olympics happened in Paris. That's where he's from. And to see that pride, to see a unified French team under his stewardship, the word that comes to mind is redemption. So much going into this Olympic process was, could one of the greats of world football channel what he knows about the game into this next generation? And the answer is yes. You don't come back from that 3-1 deficit down when they did without making some bold calls in Lacazette, without bringing Magnus Akliushe coming in, Desiree Doué coming in. And so there's lessons to be learned. And I think he's well on his way. And there's going to be the next Mount Everest he's going to climb in whatever job he gets next. But he gave a good account of himself. And the Olympics was a trampoline. You can't say that for many coaches because in Europe, the Olympics aren't looked at as kind of a big deal. But for Thierry Henry, this was a massive, massive occasion. And I think he passed.
What do you think his future is?
Ooh. I think it lies in Europe.
Do you think his stock has risen because of their performance in the Olympics?
I think it answered a lot of open questions about him as a manager. I think it answered it positively. I'll say that. Yeah.